Ois Gimel. The Rebbe will now explain that in order to have the Oir HaSeviv come down into the Oir HaMemali and to be able to come down in a Pnimius to inspire the person, to give him a chayis, Kol Yom Yu B'nech Chadoshim, it has to come from a noichi, from a place which is higher than Seviv and Memali. Only through the level of a noichi, which is higher, this Seviv comes down to Memali, and it comes down in a way of a Pnimius. Gimel. V'hinei mikivon shegeder ha'olam hu mokem uzman. The definition, the world is space and time. That's together. Move on. So it's understood. So what happens when you bring down the level of higher than space and time? When you bring down the level of Sovev, the Zeh, Shal Yidei Gilui Oir HaSovev, Nimshach Ba'olam Inyan Shalamaylam is Manamokim, that through the revelation of the light of the Sovev, we get in the world an idea which is higher than time and place. Kol yom yu banechu kechadoshim, that is all days equal, higher than Zman. How does Oir HaSevev, which is higher than Zman and Mokim, come down into a place and the Gedra Olam, which is Mokim Zman? It is Hu Shegidra Olam Betelim Mipnei Hagilu De'Oir HaBili Gvul Shalamaylam Olam. That means that the definitions of the world become subjugated. It negates them because there is a revelation of the Oir HaBlikvul, which is higher than the world. The world becomes subjugated. That's the way the Oir HaSeviv impacts the world. The definition of the world is Manu Mokoim, and you bring in there a level of Bligvul, it negates, it's mevatel, it takes away the Gedorim of the world. They become batal because of the greater Oir HaBligvul, which is higher than the world. The example for this is by a person, by the level of Rotzin, his will. The Rotzin who Moshel al Seviv. Rotzin is a example, the Rotzin versus the Koiches. The Koiches HaNefesh, the Moichin, the Midos, they are all Pnimium, and the Rotzin, the will, dominates them. The Zeh HaRotzin, Moishel v'shoylet alle heivorim, sheyasu heipech tivo. The fact that the Rotzin dominate and rules over the limbs, that they should do opposite of their nature. So the person's nature, his koiches pnimim, his limbs function naturally in a certain way. The will can override that natural function. Whom is because they're subjugated to the rotzin. So therefore, rotzin can dominate them. Okay, but that would not be sufficient over here, because if you just dominate this seviv, dominates the memali, so that memali loses itself, then it wouldn't accomplish the goal within memali. Since the idea that every day should be like new, is so that the person has an energy in the mitzvahs. Dvarim chadoshim, like new things. We want the person to serve the Eibishter, like as if it was something new just now. We want him, this energy that we want him to have, it's a inyan pnimi, the chayus upnimi. That's an inner energy. Lochein. So because of that, you can't just have being mevatel the gidrei ha'olam. You need it to be a pnimi within the gidrei ha'olam. Lochein ha'inyan de lemailo mehazman shemeir ba'odom. So therefore, this idea of higher than time, chadoshim, that shines, that the person feels kol yom yibenech chadoshim, shai days a yibenech chadoshim, that way it's chadoshim, tzorich liyos etzle bepnimius, this has to be in his inner, so that it will impact, that he will have this chayis. V'lochein, hanesinas koyach al zeh shebechol yom yibenech chadoshim. Therefore, the power given for this, that every day it should be like new, that is this, that I am mitzavcha. Anoichi, I am mitzavcha hayom. Anoichi mishonoichi. Anoichi means I, whoever I am, which means a higher level, even than the level of soibev, level of anoichi. Shalamayla gam soibev. And that gives the power that the soivev should impact the memal, and not to be mevatel it, but that it should have the chayis, that the mitzvah should be done kachadoshim. Rebbe explains this. Inyan hu, and the idea is like this. Rebbe explains that blikvul is defined by blikvul. So therefore, it cannot work with gvul in apnimius. Only when you go to Atzmus, the revelation of Atzmus, which is higher than gvul and bli gvul, it's beyond, then you can have bli gvul also impact in a chayis and a pnimi. The oir ha-bli gvul, which is hashodesh, the oir ha-seviv, the light of the bli gvul, which is the root of the oir ha-seviv, hu mugdar b'hageder de bli gvul. It's defined in the definition, the boundaries of bli gvul. V'lochein, and therefore, zeh she'ein sof lis pashtusei v'hu nimtzu begilu b'chol mokem. The fact that it's bli gvul, so there is no end to his expansion, and it can be openly in every place. Kam ba'olam hazagashmi. Also in this physical world. Because the oil is bli gvul, it has no limitation, it comes everywhere, even in Olam Hazagashmi. Ein sof. That is because the oil is ein sof. So therefore the oil can come everywhere. But that doesn't have a connection to the world. The world as a world is not impacted by that. It's not a keli to that. It's a level of bli gvul can come everywhere. The earth can come everywhere. So what happens to the world when the Eir Sof, the spatius is there? There's two ways. Two ways. Or the world doesn't feel the Eir at all, which means that while there is a gilui of bli gvul, there's an Eir bli gvul, but it has nothing to do with the world. The world doesn't feel anything of it. Or it's felt. Which means through this, it did come down an idea of Zman Humokim also in the world. But it's in such a way that the definitions of the world are negated because of the earth. The world isn't accommodating the bligvul, but it's being subdued. It's being bottled because of the oil. But ubichdei shahagilui the oil habligvul ba'olam in order for the revelation of the light of the bligvul should be in the way, in the world. It should go down the pnimi so that should inspire the person of kol yom yubanechu kichadoshim who are the atzmus. That we need through atzmus. Because he is not defined by no definitions. Loi begeder hagavul, not in the definition of limit, v'loi begeder habligvul, and not in the level of bligvul. V'lochein al yidei gilui koyach ha'atzmus, through the revelation of the power of atzmus, nase hachibur de bligvul ugvul. That creates, brings about the connection of bligvul and gvul, yichud sevev u'memale, that union of sevev u'memale through the level of the gilu atzmus. So then, v'hagilu de l'mayla mahazman shenimshach mahasevev ba'olam. So that revelation that comes higher than time, that comes from the sevev in the world, shechayuse u'me'er mamale, comes into the world comes from mamale. And now we have a gilu of higher than world. It'll come down in the inner because it is through the revelation of the gilu koyach ha'atzmus. So the impact from the gilu hasevev on the memale, on the world, is in a way that it impacts it b'pnimiyusi. Not that it's mevatlit, but it impacts it b'pnimiyusi, so the person will get the chayes that b'chol yom yu b'nechu k'chadoshim. The Rebbe goes on now to explain that there's a further. Right now, we're talking about the reason that we need this higher level of how do we get the level chadoshim, and why do we need the gilu ha'atzmus? We explained that the reason we need that is because the way to get it bipnimi is you need to have the higher level of seviv, that the atzmus to bring seviv into memale. So the Rebbe says that this is also needed not just to bring it down in a pnimius, but in the idea just to have kol yom yiyeh b'necho kechadoshim. That idea needs the higher level of gilu. Let's look inside. Daled. Yesh lahoisif, we can add to this the zeh sha'inyan. The b'chol yom yiyeh b'necho kechadoshim. So we say, in order to achieve yochol yom b'necho, said anoichi mitzavcho, you need the gilu of anoichi, who al yidei yichud sevev umemale, because you need the union of sevev umemale in order uloi rak bichdei sha'inyan de l'mayla mehazman sevev yurgosh ba'odam b'pnimius, that should be felt by the person in an inner. So you need to have the sevev come down into the memale, unite you sevev the memale. So that's in order for the person to be able to experience the kol yom yiyeh b'necho kadoshim. So the reason we need that is for the person to experience the b'necho kadoshim. Ella, but there's more than that. Gam mipnei sheba inyan de b'chol yom kachadoshim atzmai yeshnam shnei ha'afochim de l'maylo mahazman uzman. But we need this same amount just because for chol yom kachadoshim atzmai that it should be every day new. How is the Torah every day new? It is because it has the two opposites of L'mayla Mahazman Uzman. And therefore, it has this Sevev Mamale because that is how everything is new. That's the way it's Chadoshim itself. Not just so the person should feel it, but that's what Chadoshim means. Chadoshim is we have the Yichud Sevev Mamale. Shara Inyan, the Chadoshim. Because this idea that we're saying that it's new, that something is new. And why is it so precious? Why is it so dear when something is new? In essence, is the change. Something new happened over here, which means there's a change. You got something new. Because in the beginning, the item wasn't here. And just now it's renewed, so you have something new. That's on one hand when we say Chadoshim. Chadoshim by definition means that something that came about now, there's a change. Now we're saying every day is Chadoshim. That represents that there is no change. And the fact was that every day it's new. That means that this novel, this change, so now you're saying it's a constant chidush, meaning that it's not changed. So it turns out, how do we have something new and then constant? That alone, for this concept, you need Shevav Maleh. V'nimtza dezeh sho inyan de b'chol yom kichadoshim hu yichud Shevav Maleh, that is Shevav Maleh hu loy rak shagilu de Shevav de l'mayla mahazman nigrash etzlei b'pnimius. It's not that the Sevev, which is higher than Zman, should fall b'pnimius. In order, through this, he gets the energy by the mitzvahs like new things. So b'meila, it turns out this is the Hisofa that I was saying. That like this we were saying the whole time, in order for the person to feel b'pnimius that the mitzvahs like new things, he needs to have the gilui from the Eir HaSevev. So the gilui, the yichud sevev memale, is so that the memale should feel b'pnimius, to have the chayis like mitzvah, like new things. But here we're saying more than that. Shazman atzmei. Shemitzad Eir HaMemale, time itself, which is from Eir HaMemale, Hu ba'oifun de l'mayla mizman v'shinui, is in a way which is higher than time and change. Gilu HaSev, the revelation of Sev. Because you have time as renewed, a chodosh. It's a novelty, there's a change. That's what? That's Mamali. And then you're saying that this changes whole yom. That is Sev. So you're saying that time itself is continuously being anew. The renewal is continuous. Renewal is Zman. Continuous is higher than Zman. So the idea of Kol Yom Chadoshim is the idea that the uh, time is continuous, and there is a continuous of this chidush. That means Kol Yom Chadoshim. Not only that the person should feel inspired because he has the higher level of Zman, but just for something to be Kichadoshim, we're saying that it has the novelty, the Chodosh, which is a level of time, which is a level of Memale. And then we're saying we feel this Chodosh is all the time. That's the level of Soviv. That's through the level of Yichud from Soviv on Memale, so that Zman itself becomes higher than Zman and Shinui, which is Soviv. The Rebbe is going to say now, why do we need to have that we should feel every day kechadoshim? So up till now we were talking about it's possible to do the mitzvahs even if you don't have it kechadoshim. And the Rebbe asked before the kasha, and it doesn't seem it's such a terrible thing if we will do the mitzvahs, but they won't reach the level of kechadoshim. You won't have the chayis of chadoshim. It's an extra chayis. The Rebbe is going to explain now. It's not only that you won't have an extra chayis, but if it's not kechadoshim, you're actually not completely doing the mitzvahs the way they should be done. Because mitzvahs is supposed to bring down the level of sevev into the Mali. You need to do the level of on the way to Chadoshim so that sevev comes down to the Mali. V'yesh leimar. The Rebbe says, so we can say, Dezeh shekiyum ha-mitzvahs tzorich liyus ba'ofen shel kechadoshim mamesh. The fact that we say that we have to do mitzvahs and they should feel like new, like we've just gotten them. It's not just in order that when you have that feeling of your observance of Torah mitzvahs will be with more energy, with more vitality, knowing this is something new. But it's more than that. Without that feeling, the mitzvah isn't really fulfilled properly. But also this idea, the b'chol yom yibenech chadoshim negeya l'kiyum mitzvahs, that is important to fulfilling the mitzvahs, not for more energy, but for fulfilling the mitzvahs. Ki'inyan ha-mitzvahs, because what's the idea? What does mitzvahs accomplish? Shal yodom nase yichud kuchabrichu shchinte, that there is, through the mitzvah becomes the union of kuchabrichu and shchinte, which is yichud sovev umemali. So that's the goal of mitzvahs. So the kivon sha'avodas ha'odom isarusa deletato shal yodom nase ha'hamshoch isarusa dele'elo. So the service of the person, his sarusa de latata, which brings about the hamshocha of the sarusa de le'elo, tzricha liyas mein hamshocha. It needs to be from that we're being mamshich. We have to do the sarusa de latata, what we're mamshich. Lochein, kshekim ha-mitzvahs da'odom hu be'oifen. When the person fulfills the mitzvahs in such a way that every day it is like new, that's his isaruso de letato, which is chibur de zman im lemailo mi hazman, bringing down in time the chadoshim that is every day like new, within new day, within Zman, higher than Zman. That adds to the revelation of Yichud, of the union of Sefer Mamalish and Asad HaMitzvahs, because the Yid, through his feeling of Chadoshim, is connecting Lamailam Hazman, brings down that the actual accomplishment, the Sarusa de Leil, the mitzvahs that he does, should be done in a way that it adds to the yichud of Sefer Mamale that the mitzvahs does. So that's why it's important for the actual mitzvah to bring down the yichud kudsha b'richu shchintai. It's important to have that level of chadoshim, because this chadoshim is the yichud of zman and higher than zman, because chol yom chadoshim. So it's not only for the purpose of adding a chayis, but it's actually for the purpose of making the mitzvahs done in a proper way, because you have the proper isarusa de latata to create the that mitzvah, to do the mitzvah, the yichud kudsha b'richu shchintai. I say, these two ideas that we're talking about, that the sevev and the memale, these are the two names of Havaya and Elikim. Sevev is Havaya, and memale is Elikim. Like this, we know that Elikim is a cover, is a mogen for Shem Havaya. So Havaya is the oir, and Elikim is the tzimtzum, is the cover, is the mogen, is tzimtzum Havaya. But the Rebbe brings out now that Mimale is not only an extension. Mimale itself, once it goes through the tzimtzum of Elikim, that oir that goes through the tzimtzum of Elikim itself is called Elikim. Okay, Mavur, that's why Memale is called Elikim, because the oir that went through the tzimtzum of the Shem Elikim is called also Elikim. Okay, Mavur v'kama mekoymes, as explained in many places. The Shem Elikim hu loy rak hamogen v'nartek shamaylim umastir al ha'oir the Shem Havaya. That the name Elikim isn't only the shield and the seat that blocks and hides, obscures the Oir D'Shem Havaya. So we should say there is no Oir Elikim, because the function of Elikim is only to cover. He says, no, it's not just that it's a shield and a seat to block and to cover the Oir D'Shem Havaya. Elo shegam ha'oir d'shem havaya, k'moi shenimsach u'misamtzem al yidei shem elikim. But that oir of the shem havaya, when it extends and becomes restricted through the shem elikim, liyis mokar l'nivroim, to become the source of the nivroim, shabechlolu su oir hamemali. Generally, that oir, which is the mocker for nivroim, is the oir hamemale. Nikra elikim. That's called elikim. So memale, the oir hamemale, is called elikim. Papia idua, and based on what we know, the zeh shehaguf, on what is known, the zeh shehaguf malim ala nefesh. Why is the guf blocking the soul. Hu kishoyrish hanefesh hu mahavaya. The root of the soul comes from the Shem Havaya. V'shoyrish haguf hu me'elikim. And the root of the guf is elikim. V'lochein. K'moy she'elikim mailim al Havaya, just like elikim obscures, blocks the Havaya, the Havaya kein haguf mailim al nefesh. So the guf is obscuring, blocking the soul. So yes loimar, so we can say shal derech zeh hukam ba'inyan the sefer of mamale. The same thing is in the idea of mamale shagam er hamamale nikra lekim canal. As we said before, the er hamamale is also called a lekim. So sefer of mamale is also works the way Elikim blocks Havaya, and by the person, the nefesh is blocked by the guf. Shabichdei sha'odom yeda v'yargi she'iker hu inyone haneshama v'inyone hagufim rak tofel. So, in order for the person to know and to feel that the main thing by him is matters of the neshama, and the aspects of the body are only secondary. Hu al yidei yichud sevev u'memale, is through the yichud of sevev u'memale, through that union of sevev u'memale, that the inyone haguf are seen as just being tough. The meir hamemale k'may shehu mitzad atzmai, because in the light of memale as it's on its own, liyoisei moker linivroim, because the eir hamemale is the source of nivroim, vanivroim tevsim mokim legabei, and the created being take space with relative to the hamemale. Yesh tfisas mokim linyone haguf. So then there is space for matters of the body. But through the union of sevev u'memale, shegam beha'oir, k'moy shenase moker lo'ilamos meir hagilui. The oir sof shel ma'alim elmas. Yichud means that even in the oir, as it becomes a moker lo'ilamos, you feel the shine of oir sof shel ma'alim elmas, the kula kameke lo'choshiv, that before him everything is nothing. So now in the oir hamemale, which feeds the existence of creation, that oir hamemale now has the oir hasevev in it, and in the oir hasevev there is no any other entity tfisas mokim of inyon haguf. When we just have the oir hamemale without the yichud of sevev memale, memale itself gives a tfisas mokim for matters of the body. But when we make the yichud of sevev memale, so that means that even in the oir, which becomes a moker la'ilamos, you have the gilui of ein sof shel ma'alim ilamos, the kula kamei kiloi chavashim. Al yidei zeh yeshna ha'hakara. That way you have the recognition she'inyonei haguf hem rak b'shvil haneshama, that these bodily matters are not for the guf, they're for the neshama. So based on this, we can explain. It says in the Kutei Torah that Rebbe asked before, In the Kutel it says, "Ka'asher lo yeshna yo'inyan the b'chol yom kechadoshim." That if we don't have the b'chol yom kechadoshim, azai hamerirus v'atainuk shaloi. So then, what is he bitter about, and what does he enjoy? Heminyon elam hazeh, his physical matters. So the Rebbe asked before, why do we have to say that? Why do we have to? Why do we need the level of b'chol yom kechadoshim not to have the merirus and tainik minyon elam hazeh? He's not kechadoshim, but still, why do we have to say that? But the Rebbe explains now. The oir hamemalim mitzad atzmi gives a tfisas mokim to nyone haguf. And the way to get this Sveibim into Mamale is through the feeling of Kechadoshim. And that's the only way that there's not going to be a Tfisas Mokim, that in Yonim HaGuf are to serve the Nefesh, not the Guf Betzad itself. In order for it to be the Yichud HaSeiv of Mamale, so that the Mamale that the person gets, Chayis of the Guf and the world, is how does that take place? So that in the world it should feel that the goal is not the guf, that it's the nefesh. That way the worldly matters do not take up space by him. That is through observing the mitzvahs in a way that every day is like new. And that's the way we are mamshich, and we bring the yichud seva v'mamale. When we bring down the yichud seva v'mamale, that's the way to make sure that the nyone ha'olam are not elikim only, they're shem havaya, they're infused. So that way, all of the oiros, the light that comes in, that's what the Rebbe connected it to Havaya and Elikim, because Elikim represents the Mamalukul Almim, which is Shem Elikim. And the body is like the Shem Elikim, it blocks on the Guf. If we want the body not to block on the Neshama, we want the Guf not to block on the Neshama, we have to see to it that the chayis of the guf doesn't come just from Mamali alone, that the chayis of the guf comes from the yichud of Sevav Mamali to bring down that the guf is inspired by the Mamali, which is connected to the Sevav shines in Mamali, and then the guf is not master, and that's why the Alter Rebbe says that the only way that Yonah al-Hazah should not be Tefes Mokim is doing it in a way of Kol Yom Kechadoshim.